Hi, my name is Dorian, and this is You, Me, and the Industry, a show where I get to interview people from the games industry and talk with them about a wide range of topics, and inevitably, video games. On this episode, I am joined by El Huervo, and we talk about his art, his music, and his creative process. And we finally get the answer on what toppings were on those pizzas in Hotline Miami. Here we go. Hello everyone and welcome to the show. Today we have a very special guest here. I would even say a very hairy guest. Hairy as a Wolverine. We have Niklas Åkerblad here. Nick is mostly known for his moniker El Huervo, which he releases music under and also art. You might also know him from being the inspiration behind the character of Beard in Hotline Miami 1 and 2, for which he also released outstanding music tracks such as Daisuke and Rust. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Like it's a slow Friday, working on my stuff.
Yeah, I actually just saw that you had just released a tweet about some new music that you released.
Yeah, I've been working on that with my buddy Oscar Idelius for like 3 years. So like I wanted to help him to like complete a record. Like he's working with music. He's been working with music almost all his life, but he wanted to like release his own album, and I kind of pushed him to do it and helped him produce it and stuff like that.
Okay,
so yeah,
sounds awesome. Yeah,
it's been fun. I'm happy it's finally released. Obviously.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it must be a really exhausting process, like to work all this time and have like this really like great music like prepared, and you want people to hear it, but then you still need to work on it.
For sure. It's kind of weird when you come to a certain point in your I don't know what to call it, like career.
Yeah,
it's kind of like things happen in a different way. Like when you're an unknown or just like a happy amateur or whatever, you just make something and then put it out, and like it's almost instantaneous from your head to whoever might want to hear it. It's like a straight line. But after a while, it like becomes you have strategies and stuff or whatever. And it's like you make something and then it takes a couple of months before it comes out and stuff like that. It's constantly changing how things happen.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I'm really excited about this interview because also I think you once said during another interview that you're more of a shaman than a businessman. So I really hope this interview will be a spiritual experience for all of us.
Okay, wow. Did I say that?
Yeah, I think so. I looked it up. I think you said that.
Yeah, that sounds like me.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Also a bit schizophrenic though. So I might have my suit pants on today.
Yeah, okay. So before we talk video games and art and your music, I first want to talk a little bit about yourself and especially what inspires you. So I recently wanted to get more into comics, and I heard that you're a big fan of Usagi Yojimbo by Stan Sakai, and I often heard that it's a really great comic. So like, what is it about this piece of fiction that you really love?
I mean, okay, like first off, I started reading it when I was like 5, so obviously I'm biased towards it because of nostalgia as well. So I don't know how I would react reading it today. And like, in fact, trying to read like the new Usagi Yojimbos, I didn't really got into it as much because like Stan Sakai, I don't know what happened. I think he rebooted Usagi Yojimbo or like recreated him. So there's like 2 versions of Usagi Yojimbo. And I grew up like with the first one, and it kind of basically just shaped a lot of my thoughts and ideas about life and creativity and how and what I wanted to draw. So like I'm still drawing samurais, 30 years later. So it had like a huge impact. But I don't know how much of an impact it would have had if I would have discovered it today. Because I think like, and this is not a diss in any way, but I feel like what I love about it still is that it feels like Stan Sakai made like something of a fable, like sort of for kids. but it was like serious at the same time. It took like concepts like death and honor very seriously in a context which is like essentially kind of silly and cute. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I think like this kind of duality is always something that goes on in your head, right? I think like this kind of like death and life is always like something that you think about while doing your art.
I guess I do, yeah. Obviously, it's evolved over the years. Like it's not as binary today as it used to be. It's kind of like Two-Face in Arkham Asylum, like where he's being broken down by the psychiatrists, and like he starts out with just a binary choice, like either it's one side of the coin or the other. But they like introduce a tarot deck and I Ching, and he kind of loses his mind. And sometimes I feel like that. This question of like being concerned about duality in things becomes more complex the more you dig into it. So now it's more like almost impossible to explain what I think about when I create things. It's not as black and white anymore.
Yeah, but that's also kind of what makes creating something really exciting to you.
Oh yeah, definitely like the mystery of digging into things and learning new things. I guess that's why I said more of a shaman, because it feels like it dwells into that territory, for me at least. Like explore like inwards, if that makes sense to you. Like not just trying to understand, like a classical painter, for example, like wants to understand how a tree looks or how nature looks or how the sunset works. And I feel like I want to go inwards, like why do I feel certain things and why do I dream certain things and what do these things mean and how do they function to me, sort of. So like trying to map and render the subconscious somehow, like imagination.
Yeah, and we're talking about imagination, and then maybe we can also talk about the movies that you really enjoyed. I heard that you loved the movie Beyond the Black Rainbow by Carlos Cosmatos. Is that true?
Like, where do you get your research, man?
Yeah, I don't know. I just dig through the internet a little bit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I like that movie. I do. I think it does the same thing in a subversive way. Like it's trying to tell something through a spiritual filter somehow. Almost like spiritual mathematics or symbolics. I know that sounds weird, but that's how I see it. I think. Yeah, and I try to do the same thing.
And you're also a big fan of Japanese fiction and Japanese art books, especially. Like a couple of years ago, you've been to Japan, I think, and you picked up a lot of different art books. So can you maybe like talk about them a little bit, or maybe recommend one, or talk about why you picked this one up instead of the other one?
Oh man, yeah, I've been there 2 times in the past, and I think like they have such weird bookshops in Japan, and it's not just like going to the big ones and picking up art books from your like old heroes or whatever, but like also in like the little weird streets you can find tiny weird bookshops too with super crazy artwork books. And I don't know, I mean I think I just try to look through the books and see if there's anything there that catches my eye or my imagination, and not just go for like, oh, I love this dude, I need the book. Sometimes if I love the person or whatever they're creating, I love their art, and I look at like a particular art book and I feel, no, I don't need it, because I'm already friends with this person's creativity, and the book isn't conveying it in a way that inspires me. So usually I pick up a lot of different weird books, and it might be like 90% of it is nothing that I want to get into, but there's like just this one little page with something that I really enjoy. So I pick it up anyway. And eventually, as you grow, when you get like you constantly change, you might go back to these books and find new things that you would like instead later on. So it's also like trying to finding things that you like, but also constantly trying to surprise yourself in the future.
Speaking of like Japan and the whole culture behind it, I think like maybe this is also the last time I'm going to quote you. Basically, you were talking about quote unquote stealing things. So I think you said like, if you steal it, make it your own and put it through your own filters. It will come out the other side as something totally different. And I think to me, this really sounds like a kind of Asian kind of view, like Japanese or Chinese kind of view. That basically, well, like not really wanted to go too much into the whole like oh the Asian people are stealing sometimes our technology or something. But I think like they have a totally different view. I've actually spent a few years in China myself, and I think like they have a very different approach when it comes to art and when it comes to using something and making it their own. I think this is also the reason why you see a lot of filmmakers or people like Hideo Kojima releasing something that is so heavily influenced by Blade Runner or something, where they actually just take like direct shots from the movie and put them into their game, and then maybe combine it with other aspects and then make it like make it their own. I mean, like Hideo Kojima is like a talented guy right now and like a world famous, world renowned director, and but you see like this has been like his trademark style also for people like Tarantino. So I think like so like did you really pick this kind of perspective up from like a Japanese philosophy, or did you create it on your own and came to the conclusion that you want to do it like this?
I mean, I think definitely you're right about saying that there's a lot of people from Asia doing it, and that in Western culture it's almost like frowned upon. But it's becoming, especially now with the internet, more and more adamant that, you know, even the old masters copied each other and copied lesser or less renowned painters, you know, because nobody knew about them at the time. And now these pictures are resurfacing around the internet because the internet is like insane, and people put everything on there. I'm still fascinated by the internet, by the way. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, okay, like this. I used to read Thoreau, and he said something about this is like an old, almost cliche quote now, but how amateur poets borrow and mature poets steal. So I think I actually got it from there first, but then starting to realize that especially around nerd culture, because specifically Tarantino and Kojima are super nerdy, like they're nerds, and I'm a nerd too, and you know I love stuff that I nerd out about, and I like it so much that I want to use it and make it my own, you know. It's hard to explain this one, apparently. Yeah, but something like that, you know, like you want to, like you're a nerd too, right? You
Totally.
like stuff and you know that. Yeah, definitely. Like, let's say your favorite movie. What's your favorite movie, for example?
Oh, my favorite movie is probably like Taxi Driver.
Okay, Taxi Driver. So like, if you were to make a movie, do you feel like you would want to use something from that movie in whatever movie you were making?
Oh yeah,
like
of course.
Like as a homage or as help, you know, creative help or whatever.
Yeah.
So already there, that's happening. Maybe it's not just a nerdy thing. I don't know, but it feels like being a nerd, you love something with a passion in a different way than someone who's not a nerd, I would say.
Yeah.
At least that's my take on it.
Yeah, well, I think you can also see it like with like the creation of modern cartoons or something, that all these people who grew up watching cartoons and like anime and stuff, they love these things so much, and then now they create their own shows, you know, like maybe, I don't know, like Steven Universe, who's also have like some anime influences and like, you know, like some mecha or like some transformation and fightings. So I think
like some obvious references.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Like, you know, like I think they all just grew up with this stuff, and so they say like, well, I loved it so much and I want to create a show especially for me, you know, like if I don't really love the show, then how will the audience love it?
You know, like these things shape them as beings as well, and they want to put that into whatever they're making and show like, this is me and I came about through these things. I think it's cool. I mean, I think it's really cool to do it. It depends on how you do it, and I think the discussion on what it really means is kind of immature, because we haven't really dwelt into it so much. It's not so intellectual. It's more like emotionally, like on the internet, for example. I've gone into discussions with people and they're like, I take inspiration from the void. And I'm like, sure. I just don't think that's how it works. Nothing comes from nothing. You know, like the universe doesn't create or destroy energy. It just shuffles it around. And the only way for new things to arise is to mash two old things together.
Yeah, and I also think like this is one of the great things of the internet, like that we have like this sort of like constant connection and constant exchange between influences, and that we can basically just like, I've been, I don't know, recently been to a movie called Parasite, and like it's just like the greatest feeling that you can now just walk into a movie and just maybe pick up like this Korean movie, which is like I'm watching it with Korean audio subtitles,
Yeah.
and you have like these influences, and I think like back like 40, 50 years this couldn't have been possible, and I think like this is all thanks to the connection that we all share also through the internet.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like how globalized information has become, definitely. And I think that like internet culture is like the poster child for that, almost like how, or things like little curiosities like vaporwave, like mashing things together,
Yeah.
or like internet aesthetics, like it's just all crazy shit just mashed together. So and that's really cool. I mean, it can sometimes become a little bit cacophonic maybe, but I think that's also because it's so new, like how we're exchanging this kind of information. We're so new to it, so it's like, let's take all of these good things and put them together. And as we mature, we might become better at curating what we choose to mash together.
Yeah. So I think for the next segment, I actually would like to offer you the chance to bring your own topic to the show. Maybe I'm going to explain it for the listeners. Here at You, Me, and the Industry, I offer every guest a chance to bring their own topic into the show, and I'm going to ask them before I start the interview and give them a couple of weeks or days time to think about if they have a topic they want to talk about, and this topic can be literally be about anything. So Nick, do you have a topic for us to discuss? Is there something you want to let the world know?
I totally forgot about that one.
Oh, it's fine.
Okay. No, I think I can figure something out.
Sure.
A topic that I would like to think about. I mean, in all honesty, what we just talked about, I would say. I think that's really interesting, how copying and how reusing and recycling information and creativity.
Yeah.
How that works, how we all do it, and how nobody seems to want to be really honest about it. Like it's a shameful thing sometimes.
Sure, yeah. So I think like maybe then I'm gonna hit you with a kind of like a curveball question here right now, and I'm gonna ask you like when it comes to you creating something, like is there something that you would like the people to know, that there's like this one aspect that everybody, or maybe not everybody, but a lot of people totally underestimate when it comes to creating art or music?
No, I think it's novelty, or maybe not. Dude, that's a hard one.
Yeah, I had this prepared for the end, so maybe you would like getting it a little bit warmed up, but
oh my god. Okay, no, but like this, like what I feel sometimes is that it's not so much about like misunderstanding. It's more like about how weird it is to like work on something for 30 years or whatever, and sort of become good at it. And it's almost like the idea is to constantly create a magic trick. Like, how did that person do that? How did that person paint that thing or make that music or whatever? But I think that is that's like a misinterpretation somehow. Like how like that should be the goal of creating something. I think it's more interesting that like creativity is not about excellence. And these are just my personal opinions. So like for me, I think the largest misconception is that art is like elitist or about excellence. I think it's about accessibility. I really do think it's like about accessibility. Like you want to communicate with people. Nobody wants to be an artist and be obscure. But then you have concepts like time. You might only be able to communicate with an audience 30 years after you're dead, for example, and then you can't talk to them, but your art talks to them. And like Jack Kirby, for example.
Yeah.
you know, the comic, the creator, Jack
Yeah.
Kirby. Like, he's big now. A lot of people talk about him. And he said that he thought he was so popular because when kids looked at he wasn't the best craftsman. The kids could see his artwork and be like, "That's awesome," but I actually think that I could do that someday. Instead of taking someone else who has like an insane style, and somebody looks at it and just goes like, "I will never be able to do that." So, yeah, I think the biggest misconception, in my opinion, is like, I think art should be accessible, and I feel like many people don't think that about a lot of artists, and also about me, perhaps. Did that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, totally. And I think you also this is also the reason I think you released like these kinds of prints that you can buy from your shop. That you didn't want to have like this like one or two off pieces that you can like buy and frame at your wall and say like, oh, you know, like this is a limited piece, like there's only two in existence. You basically want the people that they who love your art. Do you want to offer them the chance to actually buy it and frame it and hang it up? You know, like for everybody to enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that makes me happy when that works out.
Yeah.
But also the themes and concepts in your artwork, like whatever stories you want to tell, which might seem weird because I know that my art is like, can be viewed as weird, and it's not really, you know, telling these straight obvious stories. That's because I suck at telling lean stories, like a good comprised fable, for example. I suck at doing it. I can't do it. It always becomes like a little bit bloated and a little bit too complex. So I need to find other ways around it. So I think the way I've found to be accessible to some extent was to try to work with the viewer's imagination instead, and like try to create symbols and visual cues that would inspire a certain way of thinking in the viewer, but also not keeping the narrative super obvious, so that the viewer could feel that they actually came up with a concrete, like the right story for the picture or whatever. So that, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like how if you look at something that I do, like my hope would be that you would make up your own story and feel content with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like because I think like your art is so how would I describe it? So like lash and like so expressive that you really get that you're being transported into this like fantasy world. Like, why is this person here, and like why does he look this certain way? That's basically, well, I mean, that's what I get from it.
Oh yeah, but that's good, you know. Like, you're actually you're thinking about something, and that's enough for me, I think. Because that's the bottom line. Just, you know, creating some kind of reaction in the viewer, not preaching and not trying to tell something specific, but more like, I think it's more about an emotion. Like, even if you're asking yourself these questions, like, who is this person with the weird thing? What's that thing floating? You're getting some kind of resonance.
Yeah. I mean, actually, like being controversial and like maybe not appealing to everybody is kind of exciting, and also I think like it has been happening more recently and more frequently in recent years. When you look at movies like Last Jedi, for example, or like I mean the recently released Death Stranding, and I think there are like so many like pieces of fiction and pieces of art these days that is really like controversial, and they're like, well, you know, like either you hate it or you love it. There's no real like in between anymore. I think like if there's something like if there's a movie, so for example like from Nicholas Winding Refn who made Drive, but he also made a lot of weird movies, you know, like Only God Forgives.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, I liked that one.
I actually really love that movie, you know, like Neon Demon also. These controversial movies which are a little bit like nobody makes movies. Like, I mean, I'm no movie expert, of course, but I think like to me, like when I go to the cinemas, there's like there's nobody like him. Nobody does movies like him. So I always want to see like what does he offer me, and like even if I don't like the movie, I say like, you know what, it has been different and like different enough for me that it warrants me going to the movies.
Exactly. Like it feels like he explored something new, and yeah, the movie warranted his exploration, even if as a craft it wasn't 100% perfect. But I think that's because he's Danish. I mean, I feel it the same way about Lars von Trier, or Lars von Trier, for example.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he's also Danish, and they have that weird. Can you even explain it? Like, don't you feel the same way? Like that they have both Lars von Trier and Nicholas Refn, but they have like the same kind of nerve in their movies.
Yeah, I mean they have their very own voice. I think there's nobody like them.
This almost like weird, silly seriousness going on in them. I mean, how Drive, for example, is kind of, it's really weird. Actually, if you look at, I think it is like how he acts. He's almost like
he's like almost dead inside, you know. Like there's like no real like there's so little dialogue between those people, but I think
exactly,
it really works. Like it's all going on in his eyes.
But it's a totally weird situation to be in. But the movie takes it super serious. I love that. It's kind of like almost Peter Jackson's old movies, you know, Bad Taste and stuff like that, or Chingaya, he got the bite, Brain Dead, I think it's called.
Brain Dead, yeah. Oh, that was such a bizarre movie.
Yeah, like it's super bizarre, but the characters in it, I mean, it's super serious for them. Even if for you as the viewer, it's super bizarre, it's still taking itself serious. I love that stuff.
Yeah. So maybe we can transition to something more lighthearted, but equally as important, of course. So let's talk about video games.
Oh yes, video games.
Yes, this is going to be a very simple question, a very easy transitional question. So, like, what in your opinion is the game of the year of 2019?
Dude, I mean, this is my guilty pleasure, Destiny 2.
Still Destiny, okay?
No, I don't know. The best of 2019. To be honest, I've been working so much and only playing Destiny 2 as like relaxation. So I haven't really explored much this year. I'm a bit ashamed to say that, but hey.
I mean, totally valid answer in my books, you know? Yeah, people still love this game, you know, like they actually release content all the time now. And now they recently split up with Activision, so people are really excited now.
Yeah, I think that's interesting how that's what's happening there. Like, because I do feel that Destiny is better now than it has been in a long time, even though it is a bit, you know, it's grindy and it's a bit douchebaggy more now than it was in the beginning, like Destiny 1, for example. But I guess things needs to evolve, and I think they've evolved pretty good with the times, and it feels like they can actually do their own thing now. I don't know, maybe I'm just biased or hopeful, but it feels like when Activision left, a certain kind of, I don't know, tied-upness disappeared. Like, you know, there were a lot of weird decisions that were being made with Destiny 2, I think. That was like, it felt like you were, I don't know, being abused by a drug dealer or something.
Okay. Yeah, I actually heard that. I think like there was an article on Kotaku. I think that, or I think a tweet from Jason Schreier, who actually said like that the people were cheering, like the developers, Bungie, the people working there, they were cheering once they heard the news that they're actually going to split up with Activision. Like this whole energy came back to them. So maybe it was like being freed from the shackles, like you said.
I think so. Maybe it's just, you know, how the legend tells it, but I hope it's true. And yeah, it feels like it. I mean, you know, I'm a sucker for grinders too. Like, I'm totally a sucker for that stuff. You know, just lurking around. It used to be lurking around in a dungeon, you know, finding that +3 sword, whatever.
Yeah.
And now it's finding some gun with some weird pseudo philosophic name attached to it with some, you know, weird lore.
Yeah.
I just love it.
Would you love to design a gun in Destiny 2 one day?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like totally. But it would definitely not be okay, like this. Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
If I was to design a gun for Destiny 2 in the future sometime, what would you think it would look like?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it would kind of I don't know. Like I haven't played Destiny 2 too much. I only played it like once it released. But let me think. Will probably be some sort of shotgun. I would say.
Okay, why?
I don't know. Like I have like this kind of like I don't know. Like when I think about your music and your art, it's more like, well, it's more like like you just it's not just like a blast, but it's like more like you spread it out. It's just like it's like a one and done. It's not like this like very precise sniper rifle. It's like or not this laser cannon or an
Oh,
assault rifle. It's more like like you shoot it out and then you have like maybe another shot and then so you have to reload. Like it's like this kind of typical like what are these called? Like these sort of shotguns. Like one of these types. And I also think like maybe I think of your characters also who really fit this aesthetic.
okay, wow. That's interesting because usually the characters have like a samurai sword, and I always, drew a parallel between shotgun and let's say ultra great sword in Dark Souls, for example. Like these two would be the same kind of archetype as weapons. As you said, you go for a blast and then you have to reload and
Yeah.
make another blast instead of just like
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
like
that's
a
actually
sniper.
also my build usually with like Dark Souls, like the heavy hitters. Just
It
like you,
is,
you,
right?
you swing and you hit, or you're just done. It's like it's either or.
I mean, because I'm totally not that guy. I love the exotic weapons, like the weird whips and stuff like that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, he's one of those weirdos.
No, 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 no. Okay. I mean, well, when it comes to weapons, like I'm usually more kind of like the outlaw when it comes to guns. Like when I play Apex with a couple of friends of mine, they usually always call me out on like my weird weapon choices. You're like, well, who can play? Like, why are you picking up this gun? Like, this is total garbage. I'm like, no, no, no. Believe me, like, let me show you the results.
In my hands,
Yeah, yeah,
the
exactly, exactly.
masterpiece.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah,
It was like in Destiny 1, it's much Destiny now. Destiny 1, there was this gun called No Land Beyond, I think,
yeah,
which was an exotic sniper rifle, and it was super weird because you had to reload. It was like these old guns from the first World War One. Like you had to reload it after every shot,
yeah,
and the gun was like that. So it was super hard, but it hit so hard once you hit headshots.
yeah,
So
yeah.
basically, you have to hit headshots with it. And everyone's like, "This gun sucks," and I just loved it because, yeah, as you said, in my hands, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about Hotline Miami and hit you with with a couple of questions. And but like when you think about back in the days when you worked with Jonathan and Dennis on Hotline Miami 1 and 2, like were there certain kind of food spots like that you hit up after working on these games, or like where you were talking about the inspiration behind the game, or like what you want to put into the game?
At the time, the first one, they didn't have any money at all. I was the only one who had money. So they just ate, Billy's pan pizza. I don't know if you guys have that, but it's like frozen pizza. It's like a rectangle of pizza.
Is it actually good?
Oof, I don't know. I mean, Jonathan still eats those. So I
Oh, okay.
think he likes it, but I wouldn't say I do.
Okay, so it's
Yeah,
more of like a out of necessity type of pizza.
exactly. And it's like easy to do it. Yeah, and noodles and stuff like that.
Okay.
So sometimes I had to cook. We had this thing called Niklas Specialité, where I
Okay.
used to like fry broccoli and some mushrooms and garlic and pepper, I think it's called, um, and purjolök. I don't know what that's called in
Oh, I have
English,
no
but
idea.
purjolök. No, uh, but it's a purjolök anyway. And you have some cream and some bouillon, and you do that with pasta. So I used to cook that for the guys, and also like pasta with blue cheese spinach sauce thing.
Oh, this is great. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like
it's
when you listen to like when you think about nerd food, you don't think about like broccoli and some spinach, like and some cream. Like there's like nothing.
exactly.
There's yeah, you think about like pizza and stuff.
Yeah, there's no nerd glamour with that kind of
Yeah,
food at all. It's just like healthy douchebag food. But I mean, if you're a nerd and you're sitting down a lot, you don't want to get constipated and you don't want
that's
to get
true.
hemorrhoids. So you got
That's
to eat
true.
that fiber.
Yeah, that is true. So what about recently? Are you still like hanging out with those guys?
They have like an office downtown nowadays. Uh, it's a really nice place. So once a week I go there and work on my shit while they work on their stuff, and we hang out. And I recently I started playing this board game, this insane board game called Kingdom Death. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's
No,
like
no, never.
crazy. It's it's the dark souls of board games,
Oh,
they say.
exciting.
Yeah, but it really is because you can wipe hard so hard. Like last time we played, we usually do this once a week. So it's me, Dennis, and three other guys. Uh, and I was depressed afterwards because we wiped so hard. Like we just because you hunt monsters, it's kind of like boss rush, but every encounter takes like 3 hours. And we had this guy by the balls, and then he just decapitates us. You know, because of the dices, obviously, because there's a
Of
lot of
course.
dices.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
And also because we were like, we have him, we rush in, and he just like skull fucks us to oblivion.
Oh yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that was horrible. I was depressed for 5 days after.
Okay. So, well, speaking of pizza and speaking of food, I think everybody, especially the listeners, have been really, really curious about these two questions who are coming up next. So, you're basically the inspiration behind Beard in Hotline Miami, and you also hand out pizzas there, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what kind of pizzas did you hand it out? Like, can you tell me the like, was it thin crust, thick crust, or like, what was it like the toppings?
I mean, like in real life, I didn't hand out any pizzas. I just made the broccoli thing, the non-nerdy glamour food.
Sure,
Uh,
yeah.
but if I would be handing out pizza, it would be the best cheese pizza in town. Crust, I don't know. I never really thought about it. I thought it was more about, the right kind of cheese and the right kind of tomato sauce, making a killer tomato sauce. But I realize now that I'm a total noob with this because I hadn't even considered, crusts or filling in the whatever.
Yeah, you see, like all those past interviews, they have been no preparation at all for you for this interview.
What? No preparation at all? How do you mean?
No, like I mean, like nobody else asked this kind of like in-depth pizza question besides me.
Oh no, nobody except you, man. It's pretty good question though because you know what? Now I have to ransack myself afterwards. Like,
Yeah,
the hell am I gonna do with the crusts?
yeah. I mean, this like I mean, this can only be topped by one other question. The question that
Okay,
everybody wants to
hit
know:
me, hit me.
does pineapple belong on pizza?
Fuck no, I hate pineapple.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, you're like the pizza guy in the video game industry. Like, not industry, but video games, because like you're the person who handed out the pizza to Jacket. So I think like your answer is now the definitive answer for the video game
Oh,
industry. And
finally, I'm so happy.
oh
Listen,
no,
guys,
oh, I'm really
no
sorry.
pineapple
Oh,
on pizza.
oh,
Like,
it is
no
banished.
way. Yeah,
It is now
that
in the
is
void, and people can take inspiration from the pineapple.
exactly. Why I hate pineapple with a passion is because they force fed it to me in kindergarten.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, that's why.
I mean, it doesn't really sound like a Swedish dish, to be honest. Like pineapple on pizza.
But the weird thing about Swedes is that we almost have no food culture, so but we're really good at borrowing others. So like, there was a time during the 90s when pineapple just arrived here in Sweden, and we hadn't really had it before, and everyone was putting pineapple on everything. Like it was everywhere, like pineapple, 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 and I didn't really like it. But in the kindergarten, they were like, "You got to have your vitamins. You're not allowed to leave the food table or whatever and go play with the kids if you don't eat your pineapple." So I always used to sit there for like 1 hour, slowly like a snake trying to eat a deer, sucking up that pineapple while the other kids were playing.
I
That
mean,
was my
canned
childhood.
pineapple. I mean, canned pineapple is one of the most healthy foods out there. I imagine.
Yeah, it must be. It must be. I
Of
think
course.
it's a lot of sugar in there, though, man.
Of totally.
There's
I
a
mean,
lot of sugar in
it's.
there.
I think there's no vitamins at all. I think it's just like sugar, and then there's like the hint of a pineapple in there.
It's like, yeah, the canned ones especially, like
Totally.
probably just rubber,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. So
sprinkled with.
speaking about blowing up pineapples and banishing them into the void, do you think that blowing up something for good, like Jonathan and Dennis did with Jacket in Hotline Miami, can be really liberating? So I mean, I imagine that still to this day, people constantly ask for a sequel and ask about more music from you for Hotline Miami. But I think like these dudes kind of made a definite statement in that regard. Do you feel did you really feel liberated after you just said like, well, this is it, no more of Hotline Miami?
I mean, I don't think I'm as definitive about these things as Jonathan and Dennis. And essentially, it's their story, and they can do whatever they want with it. I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe it's better to end it before you grow tired of it. I would say, yeah, it's probably a good decision. Otherwise, it'll be like Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. You know, you grow old and you fight about the IP and whatever. It's better to just end it and be like, we had a good run. So yeah, I think it's good to blow up stuff sometimes.
with the shotgun.
Yeah, exactly. Don't go to school and do that now, kids. Like, don't do that. Like, seriously. Yeah. Don't get any weird ideas.
Eat your pizza with pineapple and go to school.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe let's get into a little bit of your art. And as an artist, you do constantly need to finish your projects. And I actually heard that, I very often heard that from many people that it's actually the hardest part of creating something. So like, do you sometimes struggle with finishing a project, and has this become easier for you over time?
This is a common thing. Yeah, people seem to have issues with finishing their projects. I think I have more an issue with starting, actually. Like, but it's different. Like with games or with music, no, more like games. Games are super hard to finish, like always. The last 10% is like excruciating. And it's always fun to begin because you're just about to explore a new world. I love that. But when painting, it's like staring at a blank page can be devastating. Like, what am I supposed to put on here? Like Huervo, the guy who designed the Alien.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He got the same question. He was like, I fucking hate carte blanche or something. In his reptile-like manner. Carte blanche. You can almost not even hear what he's saying. I love him though, but whatever, he's dead now. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, staring at a blank page, what to put on there. That's excruciating. But once you've got the momentum and traction going, I actually love finishing up a painting, spending days on details and stuff like that. It's lovely. It's like waking up in the morning and be like, yes, today I'm going to finish that painting. And you spend the whole day not finishing it because you're constantly adding stuff because it's so much fun. So yeah, that's what it's like for me. Maybe it has to do with deadlines. Games are almost always made under a deadline, and a painting very rarely made under a deadline. Yeah, maybe that's it.
I recently saw that you created the covers for for a book released by Third Editions about Devolver. And you basically did two pieces of art. You made the artwork for the regular edition and for the collector's edition, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So do you think it's kind of strange that like one piece of your art is considered to be like in quote unquote more valuable, like since it is attached to the collector's edition? So I mean, they're both your pieces of art. So I mean, do you really think about it? Where you're like, well, now I have to draw the collector's edition page. It has to be, of course, more fancy, it has to be more. There has to be more details than the other ones.
I see what you mean. No, not too much. It was more like just do it differently, like let it have more of a characteristic vibe. But no, there was actually more pressure on the regular one because I don't know, it had to be more like a cover with text and stuff. and I suck at text, like doing typography. That's just not my ball, or my game, or whatever you call it in English. So yeah, it was the collectors was actually easier.
Yeah, I actually have this book here, and I really like it. I haven't started reading it because I've been doing research for months on you.
Oh yeah, because you're so well researched.
Of course. Yeah, no, but I'm going to.
I see what you mean. Yeah. Like how that, of course, things like that can be a little bit stressful, but in this particular situation, it was the opposite. Yeah.
And did creating these two covers for the book made you sort of like reflect on your journey with Devolver, or was it just like, I have to draw this book, but you didn't really think about like, oh no, like years ago I was sitting there cooking for them the broccoli and mushroom pasta?
Yeah, I think I had already reminisced enough about the good old days with Devolver, like because I painted a painting for Nigel at Devolver for his. Actually, I made two for him, and I also painted a picture for one of the founders, Harry, and also Graham's daughter. And while doing these paintings, I was reminiscing. But doing this, it was more like, a fun thing to do more than anything. And I think that's also good because I easily get bogged down into nostalgia and melancholy or whatever. So it was good to just like not have those emotions and just do something that felt fun and cool instead.
Well, and you're kind of a special artist because you do the art as well as the music for your albums, and or basically you do many things as well. So do you think there's a certain kind of benefit when it comes to being able to control both of it, music as well as artwork?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're younger and have more time on your hands, for sure. Like now it can be a bit of a nuisance because it means everything takes a lot longer. Like, oh, the album is finished. Oh shit, I got to make a cover. I don't know. No, but yeah, I think definitely, if I'm to be positive about it, it's if having control over both the visual side and the audiovisual side of a concept is amazing because you can speak to the viewer, listener more thoroughly, I feel. So yeah, sure. I mean, plus it's fun. I mean, how something sounds and what something looks like. It's very fun to explore both of those sides of a thing you're creating or making.
And you joined Instagram about 5 years ago. And do you feel that these type of platforms helped artists to get noticed, or do you feel that they just get lost in the flood of pictures that are released constantly?
Oh man, that's a tricky one. I don't know. What do you think?
I think when you think about Instagram these days, I think everything is about these sort of like money shots of like food or like, there has to be like this one shot of the burger with like every layer is visible. But like, I mean, nobody evaluates taste in Instagram. So I think this is maybe something similar for art. Like the piece of art has to be really flashy, it has to be like pop out. It has to be like liked, shared and everything. And I don't know. I think like maybe there's something like kind of lost on Instagram, but maybe you can tell me about it more.
It's super. I think it's a complex question because obviously like it's shallow because people want to generate likes and the attention span on Instagram, for example, is super short. But I do think that you can create something flashy on the surface. So like the trick is to create something flashy on the surface so you hook people, but you have to have some kind of depth underneath so that they stick around. So, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it more has to do with taste and how you handle it. Like, sure, you can't put up a movie like Stalker on Instagram, for example. People are going to lose interest. But then again, it might also be the mainstream who's losing interest. There might actually be people out there who are just like you and are like tired of this and see something black and white that looks really drab and pensive and be like, oh, this is the new shit. Like,
Yeah.
People looking for what's different, and all of a sudden depth will be what's different. So then people will eventually get back into that, and the pendulum swings back and forth that way. That's what I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's
So
always sort of a love-hate relationship with these kinds of things, you know, like Instagram and Facebook and all this stuff, I guess.
yeah, exactly. And right now it's just a lot of shallowness, but eventually it'll probably be the opposite. But I think you can work with shallowness too. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, okay, someone has a food account, just to roll with your example,
Yeah.
and take all these flashy pictures, and you can't taste the food, but I mean, it's up to them to put some depth into it. I mean, if they don't want to, they don't have to, and then they can have like 2 million followers and not give a rat's ass about any depth or whatever. But it's also up to you to like not follow them if you don't want to, and go look in the murky places to find what you want. Like, so instead of putting your energy into thinking, oh, everything's like this now and it sucks, go out and find the thing that suits you, because it's out there.
Yeah. And I think like
I'm
also,
trying to stay positive.
yeah, I mean that's also encouraging, right?
Yeah.
So your art has a very strong visual style. Do you think that you put something of the Swedish culture or even something really special from Gothenburg into your art?
They're good questions. I like this. I mean, have you ever been to Gothenburg? Do you know what it looks like?
No, never. I have a friend over there.
Oh, you do? So
Yeah.
you've seen pictures?
No, no.
Because there's
Only from her. But like no pictures from the city. Maybe I'm probably going to visit her next few years. So
Okay, so then you'll find out that it's called Innsmouth the Second for a reason.
okay.
Innsmouth from H.P. Lovecraft's Call of Cthulhu.
Oh no, I don't.
You don't know? Do you know about Call of Cthulhu?
Yes,
But you haven't read it.
I haven't read it. No.
Okay, but like okay, so then never mind. Anyway, Swedes used to say that the best, or Gothenburgians, the best summer day of summer. No, what was it again? Something about one day and summer. Yeah, summer is the best day of the year, because the rest of the year the weather is so shitty and it's like always gray and wet. So there's not a lot of colors around this city.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty dab and like murky and watery and like stuff like that. But I think that sort of makes you want to dream more, or dream away someplace and like try to create other fantastic worlds that you can escape into. So like Gothenburg is good for escapism. Yeah, that's what I want to get to.
Oh, okay.
Is, yeah, I think Gothenburg is very good at stimulating escapism.
Mm-hmm.
There
so,
you have.
Yeah, it was a great answer. So let's go to the final area, I would say, and talk about music for a second here. So I realized that you do like to use samples in your tracks.
Yeah.
So what is the secret to use a sample effectively?
Oh, this has changed a lot lately. So, dude, that's hard. I don't know. Like, it's more of an emotional thing. I never know if a sample is going to work or not, because you can hear this amazing thing and you want to sample it and use it. And then you start cutting it up and realize it's shit, because it's a sample and it belonged in the song it was made for and not in your piece of shitty music. So usually it's the worst samples that work out the best, I think. Like, there's one song I've made that's called Irreversible, and it's on the album Van der Veer. And it was like the worst sample ever. So I just ended up using the noise from it. And eventually it just became this really cool, sort of gritty 90s New York kind of sound to it. And it sounded nothing like the sample because I had just cut out all the melodies and used like the weird sound artifacts instead. So yeah, you never know. Usually it's the worst ones that work out the best, I think. Or piano, yeah, piano, definitely. That's why all the hip hoppers make a lot of piano beats, because it's super easy to sample piano and just fuck around with it.
And do you think that with services such as Spotify that we all listen to music more or less these days?
Oh, jeez. I think we listen to music more, but I think we listen differently. It's not like back in the 70s when you put on a record and, everybody sits around and listens to it. Now it's more like this constant, it's like listening to the radio, even listening to curated music on Spotify. It's like Spotify took radio's place or something. So it's more become this little buzz that gives, it's just like buzz for the brain, like soda pop for the brain instead. So I think we're listening more, but we're not actively listening more. We're actively listening less, perhaps. Yeah, that's what I think.
And do you still listen to music like in the 70s? Do you put on like nice headphones and do you listen to a vinyl or like a CD or like I don't know,
Yeah.
like even a new album? Do you sometimes do this?
Yeah, I don't do it with like the old mediums like vinyl or CD. But yeah, I do that with music in general, for sure. Like that's how I like it. But I've been getting into audiobooks more and more also. I mean, I used to hate audiobooks, but now I'm kind of hooked. So
okay.
Yeah.
So is there like a real like a gem audiobook that you would say like everybody should listen to this audiobook?
Oh yeah, I thought The Terror by Dan Simmons was amazing. I think they even made a series about that on Netflix, or was it HBO? One of those streaming services anyway. And that was really good. Yeah, I like that one. And also Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, awesome audiobook. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And then there's
definitely check those out then.
If you want to check out one more, let's do
Sure.
a third one. Like, what's his name again? Shit, I forgot his name. Yeah, the guy who Let the Right One In. Do you remember that movie?
Oh yeah, it was a great movie.
So it's like written by a Swedish author called John Ajvide Lindqvist. And he has a book called Människohamn, like Human Harbor, which was like a great ghost tale. And he read it himself in the audiobook, and he does it like really good. So I love that one too. All three are ghost stories, or scary one at least.
Yeah. Perfect.
I
but
like
he
that stuff.
most likely read the Swedish version, right?
Yeah, exactly. So because it's a book to begin with.
Sure, yeah. And you very often said that Akira Yamaoka is like a huge inspiration to you. So like why exactly him? Like was it the combination of like gameplay and the music, or is it just like like his sense of like making you feel oppressed, or like also sometimes like mysterious and
the mystery also. For sure.
Yeah,
like but also like just playing Silent Hill when it came out, playing Resident Evil, it was kind of campy, like like these B movies, and then Silent Hill comes and sort of hits you with this weird music, like almost indie rock, and then it goes into and then it finishes off with a fucking tango. And I'd never heard anything like that in video games before. So I think just the sheer creativity and like, the willingness to boldly do stuff that no one else had put into games. I just thought that was awesome. So yeah, and then the mysterious factor for sure. And also being a sucker for saying everything Japanese.
So and also when talking about your process of making music, you said that it's almost like catching an eel. So what I want to know now is like, how is the fishing season recently, and are you now a fishing master?
I think sure. Let's say I'm a master. I'm allowed to have some cubers, right? No, but
yeah.
No, it's kind of like catching an eel, and yeah, fishing is pretty good. Yeah, I would say it is for sure. Still hard to catch an eel, but there's plenty of them abound.
All right. Nick, I had a wonderful time doing this interview with you. So let the people know, what are you currently working on and where can people find your art as well as your incredible music?
The easiest thing is to just Google El Huervo and use some of that Sherlock Holmes savviness that I know you have. And yeah, I just I produced an album for a guy called Rat Vader. It's on Spotify. It's called Rat Vader's Dream. So you can listen to that, and it's very ambient and lovingly labored. And it's on, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. I mean, I will also put in, of course, some in the show notes and also on Twitter and Instagram. But before I talk about this, before we started the podcast recording, I actually asked you to grab a little piece of paper and a pen. Do you still remember that?
Yeah, it's right here.
Okay, perfect. So I think for the ending of this show, I would like you to ask or to draw a little scribble of what you imagine I look like, just purely based on my voice. Like we've been talking for quite some time now, and I think it's always very funny that because sometimes there's this listeners write in and they say I listened to your podcast for days and months and years, and I never imagined you to look like this. Once I saw a picture. Yeah, so basically I want to ask you, would it be possible to draw a quick scribble of what you think I would look like right now? Or not what I would look like, but just my face, my hair.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure. Do you promise not to take this personally?
No, of course not. I mean, it will be, just like with the movies by Refn, it will be interesting no matter what.
Okay,
it will be worth it.
Do you want me to post this?
I'm going to post this
later.
also on Instagram. You can post it as well if you want to. And while you finish the drawing, I'm gonna first hit the listeners up with some social media stuff. Whether people can find us and find more interviews and more behind the scenes, I guess. So you can follow us on Instagram at Yumi and the Industry. And also on Twitter, we are at Yumi Industry. And there will be also a YouTube channel, which is called Yumi and the Industry. And I'm not sure if we're going to be on Facebook. I don't know. Does anybody use Facebook these days anymore? But I will promise you that you will find the picture of what I look like, drawn by the one and only Niklas Åkerblad and El Huervo, and you will find it on either probably his Instagram or my Instagram, my Twitter. I'm not quite sure, but I will figure it out and I will let you know. Thank you guys. Thank you everyone for listening, and see you in the next show. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.